Imagine the chilling dread. Being forced into a car by your mother-in-law, no explanation, just driving off to somewhere unknown.
Yeah,
That's the terrifying reality we're diving into today.
it really is. We have this incredibly unsettling personal account from Willow, and it details this escalating and ultimately truly harrowing conflict with her mother-in-law, Sylvia.
Right.
It's just such a stark illustration that family dynamics can, well, in some extreme cases, go way beyond typical challenges.
Our mission here for this deep dive is really to dissect Willow's own story, her firsthand narrative. We want to understand those key moments,
Hmm.
the points where things escalated so intensely, and try to explore the dynamics she felt were at play.
And we're working directly from Willow's account here. It's important to stress that.
Exactly. So it gives us a very focused view, even if it is, a single perspective on how this relationship just broke down.
Right.
Honestly, even just reading it through the first time, the level of tension is shocking.
Yeah.
Some genuinely disturbing events.
It really is. And look, while every family has its issues, its nuances,
Sure.
Willow's story describes something else, a descent into really extreme territory. It forces you to think about boundaries, control within families, and just the potential for this kind of intense conflict.
Okay, so let's unpack this right from the start. Willow talks about how initially meeting Ethan's family felt, well, pretty good, actually.
Almost picture perfect, she says.
Yeah, warm, welcoming. But she also mentions this kind of persistent unease about Sylvia, Ethan's mom, something she couldn't quite pin down at first.
It wasn't just one big thing, was it?
No, not initially. It was these passive-aggressive remarks or how Sylvia would sort of subtly undermine my decisions.
And those little comments.
Exactly, like mentioning Ethan's childhood friend all the time or saying how she missed the old days when things were simpler.
Right, subtle jabs.
And Willow says, at first she kind of brushed them off. Just personality quirks, maybe.
And that's what's so insightful, I think. Willow's own awareness of these small things early on, they weren't, huge blow-ups, but they were consistent. And that consistency, it builds that unease. It shows how conflict often starts small, doesn't it?
Definitely.
These little behaviors just pile up and wear down the relationship. Those comments about the friend, the old days, they feel like subtle ways to maybe keep a connection to Ethan's past.
Or maybe suggest Willow wasn't measuring up somehow.
Exactly. To some kind of perceived ideal. It plants seeds of doubt.
And Willow specifically mentions this shift in how she saw it all. From thinking, oh, they're just quirks, to suspecting they might actually be calculated moves.
Yeah.
That's a big moment, isn't it? When you start to think, maybe this isn't accidental, maybe it's deliberate.
That is such a critical turning point.
Yeah.
It suggests Willow started thinking, okay, this isn't just Sylvia being awkward or struggling to adjust.
Right.
It might actually be deliberate attempts to make her feel insecure or, like, unwelcome.
Then things take a really sharp turn. Ethan and Willow decide to move into a new house.
And this seems to be the major trigger.
Totally. Suddenly, Sylvia just appears at their door, arms crossed apparently, and drops that line, "We need to talk."
Oh, that sounds chilling just hearing it described.
Right. Willow says she felt immediate dread because she remembered past talks with Sylvia.
Which usually involved criticism.
Exactly, leaving her feeling like she wasn't quite up to her standards.
That move is so significant psychologically. It's Ethan and Willow creating their own independent unit.
Yeah.
And Sylvia might have seen that as a direct threat,
Yeah.
to her relationship with her son.
That makes sense.
So her showing up unannounced, that demanding tone, "We need to talk," it sets up a confrontation immediately. And Willow's past experiences just primed her to expect the worst.
But what happens next is, well, it's shocking. It wasn't a discussion. Willow says Sylvia grabs her arm,
Physically grabs her.
physically grabs her arm, pulls her towards the door, and says, "You're coming with me."
Wow. Okay.
Willow tries to resist, apparently, but describes Sylvia's grip as unyielding. Then she's basically forced into the car.
Physically forced.
Yeah. Willow says she felt like her body was moving on autopilot, but her mind was just racing with fear, confusion.
That physical coercion is a massive and frankly disturbing escalation. It's not words anymore.
No.
It's force. And that feeling of being on autopilot, that sounds like shock, disbelief.
Absolutely.
It's a huge power shift.
Yeah.
Sylvia just exerts physical dominance, completely overriding Willow's will.
And then comes this incredibly unsettling car ride. Sylvia offers zero explanation, just stares straight ahead.
Nothing. No reason.
Nothing. Willow pleads, apparently, asking what's happening, where they're going, but just gets oppressive silence.
Oh, that must have been pure terror for Willow. Complete darkness about the destination, Servia's intentions.
Right.
That silence, psychologically, can be devastating. It cuts you off, lets your imagination run wild with the worst possible scenarios.
Yeah.
The deliberate lack of communication becomes like a weapon, a tool of control. It denies Willow any agency, any understanding.
Then the car suddenly stops. In the middle of nowhere, Willow describes it. Edge of a forest she doesn't recognize.
Oh, no.
Sylvia gets out, again, not a word, and just starts walking towards the woods.
Just walks off.
Yep. And Willow, despite being terrified, feels this weird compulsion to follow her.
That isolated location just screams danger, doesn't it?
Totally.
Taking someone away from familiar ground to somewhere unknown, secluded. It's a classic tactic. It ramps up the fear, makes escape seem impossible.
And Willow's torn, right? She wants to run, but she's scared of provoking Sylvia even more.
That internal conflict must have been agonizing. The instinct to flee versus the fear of making things worse. Palpable, even just hearing about it.
So they walk deeper into these woods, then Sylvia stops, and finally speaks again. I think it's time we had a little talk, Willow.
Chilling. After all that silence.
And then she lays it all out, her motives as she sees them. You've been a problem from the start, and then Ethan was always mine.
Wow. Possessive.
Completely, blaming Willow for ruining everything.
So there it is. The core of it. From Sylvia's side, as Willow experienced it anyway.
Yeah.
It just reveals this deep-seated possessiveness over her son. An inability, it seems, to accept Willow. That phrase, Ethan was always mine. That points to some really serious boundary issues.
Definitely unhealthy.
Yeah, maybe in an enmeshed relationship. And blaming Willow for ruining everything, that's avoiding her own feelings, her own actions, isn't it?
Totally deflects. And Sylvia even dismisses Willow's love for Ethan, says it's not real or something, and then she pushes her.
Physically pushes her.
Shoves her to the ground, then tells her coldly to get up and starts dragging her deeper into the woods.
Okay, the physical aggression again, that's deeply concerning.
Yeah.
It's moved way beyond just verbal threats now.
It just keeps escalating.
And dragging her further in.
Yeah.
That just increases the isolation, reinforces Sylvia's physical control, creates this immediate sense of threat, powerlessness for Willow.
Eventually, Willow says they reach this cabin. Dilapidated, she calls it. Sounds terrifying.
A cabin in the woods, after all that.
And Sylvia's words there, particularly menacing, she says, "This is where it ends."
Oh, that's a direct threat.
The implication of harm is just chillingly clear. Inside, the atmosphere is oppressive, and Sylvia starts accusing Willow of trying to take control, trying to dismantle everything Sylvia had built.
So the cabin becomes this symbol, right, of isolation, imminent danger. And that line, "This is where it ends," it's unambiguous. It suggests extreme violence is possible or intended.
Yeah.
Her accusations about control, destroying what she built, it just reinforces that possessive mindset.
Yeah.
Seeing Willow as this destructive force in her life and her relationship with Ethan.
Then comes the climax. According to Willow's account, there's another physical assault inside the cabin. Willow's trying desperately to defend herself.
Another attack inside the cabin.
Yes, and then suddenly a loud bang from outside.
A bang, like a gunshot.
Or it's not specified, just a loud bang. But then it's Ethan. He's arrived, unexpectedly.
Ethan, he found them. How?
The account doesn't detail how, just that he arrived. And it's a complete shock.
Wow. Okay, so Ethan's arrival. That's the turning point in the narrative.
Absolutely.
It disrupts everything Sylvia's doing. It brings the possibility of rescue, a return to, reality for Willow. That bang must have been incredibly tense.
And Sylvia's reaction, Willow describes this immediate dramatic shift, so manipulative.
What you do?
Tries to flip it, portray Willow as the aggressor, the one causing all the trouble.
Classic manipulation. Trying to control the narrative instantly.
But thankfully, Ethan sees right through it this time. He takes a decisive stance, supports Willow.
He does. Good.
Directly confronts his mother, and apparently very firmly declares his love for Willow.
That's pivotal. Ethan's unwavering support for Willow, confronting his mom. That shows a massive shift in his understanding, right?
Right.
And a clear commitment to Willow.
Definitely.
And declaring his love,
Yeah.
that directly undermines Sylvia's whole campaign to invalidate their relationship.
Sylvia's reaction then is apparently disbelief. Accuses Ethan of betraying her.
I can imagine.
But he stays firm. So finally, Sylvia leaves. But not quietly. Delivers one final bitter threat as she goes.
Wow. So even then,
Even then, in the immediate aftermath, Ethan comforts Willow, expresses deep regret, apparently, for not seeing how bad things had gotten sooner.
that's important. His acknowledgement.
Yeah. And Willow describes feeling immense relief, this newfound sense of safety. But she also knows, the emotional impact isn't just gone.
Of course not. Trauma lingers.
Right. Her focus then shifts, she says, to protecting her relationship with Ethan moving forward.
Sylvia's bitter exit, that final threat. It suggests that while the immediate crisis is over, the underlying issues, the potential for future conflict, might still be there.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
But Ethan's regret is a crucial step. And Willow's relief is totally understandable. Her recognizing the lasting impact shows a realistic grasp of the trauma, and her determination to protect the relationship that speaks volumes about her resilience.
Willow's account, just as she shares it, it's undeniably dramatic, profoundly disturbing, really. The intensity of this mother-in-law conflict just escalated so far beyond, the typical difficult dynamics you sometimes hear about.
It really did.
Yeah.
Willow's narrative is such a powerful illustration of how complex and sometimes just how volatile family dynamics can actually become.
Yeah.
Her experience shines this really stark light on themes of control, unhealthy attachment in families, and the profound impact conflict like this can have on someone's sense of safety, their well-being.
Absolutely. And it's crucial, as you said earlier, to remember we focused entirely on Willow's perspective here.
Exactly, as presented in her personal account.
Yeah.
That's the source we have for this deep dive.
Right. We've explored her narrative, how it unfolded in her own words, and it definitely leaves you with a lot to think about, doesn't it?
It really does.
Like, what are those deeper factors, maybe the ones we don't see on the surface, that can fuel such extreme family conflict? And, how can people navigate these really complex in-law relationships before they ever reach such a critical, potentially dangerous point?
Those are the big questions, aren't they?
They really are. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Willow's story.